Chief Justice Raymond Zondo announced that lawyers and academics may be announced directly or appointed directly to the Constitutional Court. The Chief Justice was speaking on the sidelines of the ongoing Judicial Service Commission interviews. We take a look at what this would entail or what it means with Chris Oxtoby, research consultant at Freedom Under Law. Thank you very much for your time this afternoon, Chris. So it is noted that the Constitution does not preclude non-judges from being appointed as justices at South Africa's highest court. Is it advisable, though? And in answering the question, perhaps you can help us understand the scope of work.
So I think to explain whether it's advisable, it's important to understand a little bit of the context of what's been happening with appointments to the Constitutional Court in the last couple of years. And there's been, frankly, quite a crisis in getting enough candidates to put themselves forward to make appointments. There's currently a vacancy for a permanent position on the court that has been open for 2 years and counting. The Judicial Service Commission advertised that vacancy in its round in April this year, and it didn't receive enough candidates to even interview for the position. And the Chief Justice indicated that for the round that's currently going on, he didn't even advertise the vacancy because he felt that they were just going to get the same result and that they were not going to have enough candidates. So I think it's to the Chief Justice's credit that he's tried to think a bit outside of the box and that he's tried to look at a more diverse pool of candidates to try and address that problem and just make sure that they actually have enough candidates to choose from. Now, as you've mentioned, the Constitution does allow for the possibility of people who are not currently judges to serve on the court. And if we think back to the Constitutional Court in its early days, a lot of the very famous and significant early judges on that court came straight out of legal practice or out of academia. One can think of Justice Chasperson, Lange, Sachs, Mahoro, O'Regan, all came out of, didn't come straight from other judicial positions onto the court, and all of them made a very significant contribution to the court. So I think it's a positive development. I think because the Constitutional Court sits as up to 11 judges at a time, there is scope to bring in different perspectives from people who are not necessarily experienced judges. And yes, they may not necessarily be familiar with as much of the procedural issues as someone who's been a judge for 10 or 15 years. But they do have those kind of people among their colleagues, and they do bring their own perspectives and experience from their academic or their practicing background. So I'm inclined to see it as a positive development.
Sure. In giving context, you mentioned the crisis, and you rightfully mentioned that in this round of interviews, it was not advertised, the post that is. There are 3 names, though, and the Chief Justice would not be drawn on those 3 names. So in thinking outside the box, what do we know about how independent and impartial this decision has been?
I mean, it's a good question because the whole process of appointing acting or temporary judges to a court does often raise some concerns in terms of issues of independence. So the process, and just to clarify this, the Chief Justice indicated that that's the capacity that these individuals will be serving, and that they will be serving short acting stints on the court, and they would be encouraged then to apply for permanent appointment. Now, the process for appointing acting judges doesn't go through the Judicial Service Commission. It's done basically between the Chief Justice, the Minister, and the President. So it's not a process that has the open public transparency that the permanent appointment process going through the Judicial Service Commission does. So one is really putting quite a lot of trust in people like the Chief Justice, like the Minister of Justice, and like the President to ensure that the individuals that they identify do have sufficient independence, do have sufficient qualities. I think in the long term, this process of how temporary appointments are made probably needs some improvement. But that is the situation that we are faced with at the moment.
So going back to your point of a crisis, what then needs to be done to address this crisis. For how long has it been left lingering to a point of being a crisis?
It's a long-standing problem. The last time I can recall a very large number of candidates being put forward and being considered, once looking back to 2009, really. And ever since then, we've been looking at situations where the Judicial Service Commission has to put, let's say, 4 names to the President for him to choose from. And we've frequently seen situations where only 4 candidates are shortlisted to be interviewed. So this has been going on for a decade or more. And it's difficult to know exactly what the reasons are for that. But I think one can fairly assume part of the problem has been the way that the Judicial Service Commission has been conducting its public interviewing process. If one thinks back 2 years ago, a round of Constitutional Court interviews were actually rerun because of the threat of litigation, because of unfairly they've been carried out. So I strongly suspect that a lot of potential candidates have looked at that process and said, no, thank you, that's not for me. I'm not willing to subject myself to that kind of a process in public. So I think a really important element, as well as diversifying the pool that we're looking for of candidates, it's really important the Judicial Service Commission restores trust in the interview process. It shows that it is a fair process. The candidates are not going to be ambushed or harassed, as unfortunately has happened on occasions in the past. So that I would say is absolutely fundamental.
And that leads to my next question, because I'd like for us to expand on that, right? Has the highest court in the land gone without problems when it comes to appointment, when it comes to individuals being able to conduct their jobs, when it comes to individuals being independent and impartial, and upholding this very here constitution that is said to be the best in the world? Chris, are you still
I think most people would assess the Constitutional Court's... sorry, yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yeah, please go ahead.
I'm still there. Sorry, I was going to say, I think most people would say that the Constitutional Court has done a really important job and has played a really valuable role in upholding the Constitution, in protecting the rule of law, in protecting our institutions. Obviously, there are going to be some judgments here and there that people are going to criticize and disagree with. I think that is in the nature of what one is going to do when you look at the work of the highest court. I think where there have been problems with some judges and their conduct, where we've seen that judges subject to quite serious complaints. I'm thinking of some high court judges. There's some very, very famous and well-known examples. And those complaints have not always been dealt with as well as they might have been, and they've taken a long time to be resolved. So this is not to say that the judiciary doesn't face issues, and there are not certain instances where they've been problematic pieces of behaviour by some judges. But I think the Constitutional Court itself, I think a consensus view would probably be that the court has done what it is there to do, and has given some really significant judgments to protect and affirm our constitutional democracy.
Thank you so much for your time this afternoon. Chris Oxtoby, research consultant at Freedom Under Law. More news for you in a few moments.